So I'm going to start with Mr. Abdul Hamid Mamdouh to discuss with us the issue of the trade and what's Trump doing, how it's going to impact. Oh, thank you so much, Dr. Abdul Latif, the executive manager of the ECS, and I would like to welcome the attendees, dear and old friends, like my dear friend, my dear brother, Tahir, and others that they are here. Actually, I will try not to be lengthy because this issue has many aspects. First of all, I would like to grab your attention to, it might be something known for all of us, but it's very important to pay our attention to it, that we are dealing with a different USA. We are dealing with a situation that is controlled by one person, one individual, and it is not controlled by an institutional framework or rules or regulations. Therefore, it's a new type of the US management that we did not witness before, at least my generation. I beg your pardon. And this will make us, what are the characteristics of this person? The characteristics are going to be conveyed to the features of the management system. First of all, that this person, he hates rules. He hates the legal frameworks. He hates commitments. He doesn't like anything that will keep him controlled. Number two, this person is a transactional person, meaning he only thinks in the short period of time. He doesn't have a long-term vision. Whatever is controlling him is the logic of power, not a political vision or not a policy vision in order to develop the American economy. Number three, that this person has no one that is dear to his heart. He is pressing his friends more than pressing his enemies. And this is the attitude that we see with the traditional allies of the USA, starting from Europe, Mexico, and other countries. The last point is that this person, in my own point of view, has a very disturbed relation with the reality. Because there are issues that he view it wrongly. One of this point is the trade deficit, the commercial deficit. Trade is not only the trade of products. Trade, once we established the World Trade Organization, we have the service trade. And by the way, this logic is absent from whatever he's talking about the trade deficit, especially when he talks with the European Union. And he says that there is $350 billion deficit with the European Union. First of all, the trade deficit with the product trade with the European Union does not exceed $160 billion. On the other side, the USA, they have a surplus in the balance of trade services, about $110 billion. So if we add these two numbers, we will see that the trade deficit for the USA does not exceed $50 million. But did you notice that? How he wrongly and mistakenly view the reality. Also, the industrial sector, he's totally obsessed by this. It only represent only 8% of the USA GDP. 83% from the total GDP for the USA economy is in the service sectors. Whatever is represented in the service sector, from transportation, insurance, telecommunication, whatever you can imagine, whatever services you imagine, that represent the majority of the advanced economies. Sorry. And in the industrial sector, 8%, and in the service sector, 80%. So industrialization, he's very obsessed with industrialization, and actually this is the main mission statement. And for this reason, I'm telling you, there is a kind of deformation of the reality. What Trump is doing for the tariffs, as Dr. Abla mentioned, will this lead to the result that he wants to reach, which is reviving industrialization? I'm saying no, this will not happen. For a very simple reason, that all the lessons that we are referring to, starting, including Plaza Accord and whatever is related to the financial policies and the price of the currency and its impact on the trade, we are living today in a totally different world, a world that is controlled by the supply chains and the value chains, meaning that we don't have a product or goods that is produced in only one country like before. And if we looked at the vehicle industry, this is a live example. In the past, Ford was manufactured in one country. Now, the industry and the manufacturing depends on the flexibility of the service flows, the transnational service flows, and that will lead at the end to the computational capability. So if we start intervening in the transnational flows, that was a very important source for the economic prosperity. So therefore, we are being like an obstacle to improve and develop the computational capability. And that's the risk that is facing the American economy. On the other side, and is the systemic part or whatever is related to the international systems for trade. And this what makes me very worried now. And this a damage that already occurred, which is the destroying the international trade system, not only to impact the trade, but it means destroying stability and predictability. Actually, we are talking about free trade, but there is no such thing like free trade. There is no a complete free trade, but actually the main value for the international trade system is to assure the system what the system assure from stability and predictability, because these two pillars are the main pillars in the investment environment. No investors are going to invest to build a factory, for example, or a company in a specific country unless there is stability and predictability in the laws and in the legal framework that control the requested or the required activity. This problem, I imagine that it's a very big problem. And if we reviewed the nature of the personality that we are dealing with. It's a person that refuses any kind of control. And this not only appears in the trade balance, but in all the sectors that is related to the international relationships. And Trump has a totally different point of view towards the international relations, different than what was going on since the World War II. Since World War II, we were used that the USA, they lead the movement of establishing organizations and systems, including the international laws, in order to organize the relations between the countries in a way that we can describe as it is advanced more than any other eras. After the decline or the collapse of the colonization. This is not what is ruling now and is not controlling the system of the USA dealing with other countries. What is its impact on the international trade system? I say that at the end, what we are going to reach will depend on the reactions of the other parties. For sure, the other parties, including the members in the International Trade Organization, we have 166 member states, 27 countries. They are the European Union. If the USA today did not implement the commitments toward the International Trade Organization, and that's what we can see now, the tariffs that are imposed by the USA government are actually penetrating the the International Trade Organization laws. Let me open a bracket here. All the tariffs for the export American goods, they are tariffs under legal commitment in the for every country that is a member in the International Trade Organization, and there were a kind of negotiation with the USA, and it was these conventions and agreements were adopted legally. So therefore, when Trump will say today that the tariffs are unfair, I will say, you agreed upon this, not you as a person, but you as a country. And here I remind you, with the first point that I tackled, he is not considering himself that he is representing the USA. He's representing himself. And whatever he says, he's criticizing the former governments. And here there is a very important part, which is destroying the credibility of the USA. I am negotiating with a person, with an individual, or I am negotiating with a country that I should respect when they sign an agreement and they are committed and they adopt this agreement. This will have a huge impact. We are talking about the only power. It's been a while that we live in the unipolar systems. The hegemonic era of the United States is coming to an end. Actually, this is the reality. This is the reality. It will take time, but we are in the beginning of the ending. And for this reason, according to the history, any empire, I'm not going to say to decline, it engages acts of self-harm, and that's what we see now. I'll go back to the impact on the general system, general international trade system, and I would like to say that at the end, the outcomes will depend on other parties. Any international system depends on a leadership. We were depending on the leadership of the USA. This leadership stopped. not because of Trump, actually. It started declining since 2008 with the beginning of the financial crisis. And the USA, it is a passive. It's passive. We are talking about the WTO reform 10 years ago, and nothing is happening because we are all waiting to see what the USA wants. This is over now. This situation is totally over. The rest, actually, the member states, from the European Union to Canada to Mexico, the African countries, the developing countries like Egypt, the Asian countries, the countries that they see that it is a must to have an international system, a multilateral international system that organize the legal rules, the relations between the countries that will achieve credibility, stability, and productivity. And the investment flows having this system is vital to assure the future opportunities. So we have to exert a joint effort, and actually voices are heard now. There was a celebration 2 weeks ago celebrating the 30th anniversary of the World Trade Organization. Me and Tahir, we were talking, we were young at that time. I'm joking. And voices are heard now, and there is a report from 40 countries that it is a must to keep the system in spite of all what's happening. And there was an independent declaration or announcement that we have to unify the voices in order to keep the system. Yes, for sure, the system needs to be improved and developed, but this is another story that we can tackle later. And now we started. What's happening in Washington nowadays is a wake-up call. It's a wake-up call for whomever is interested in keeping the system as it is. Why? Because it's necessary. There are lots of details that we can tackle why what Trump is doing will not achieve his objectives, which is bringing back manufacturing. Because manufacturing has a new model nowadays, as I said before, for the supply chains and the value chains. And he's totally ignoring the power of the USA in the services sector, which is the vital sector in any economy. I won't be lengthy about the service trade, but what I want to shed the light on is when we talk about the service trade, we are talking about investments. For this reason, when I say trade and investments are parallel together, not to be two coordinative policies, but part of it is trade. Investment is trade. And this is what related to the service trades, because service trades and the way of managing the service trades, we have manufacturing of the services through establishing a trade institution in the export market, what we call it the commercial establishment. And if we look at the foreign direct investment flows all over the world, we will find that 2/3 are in the service sector, meaning that when we talk about FDI, foreign direct investments, 2/3 of the FDI is trade, is commerce. Actually, it's service trade. And these decisions, we have to have legal framework in order to achieve stability and predictability. For the Mar-a-Lago code, I'm actually surprised because the model that we refer to which is the Plaza Accord, not only it was in a totally different time, but with different partners as well. At that time, Germany, Western Germany, can you imagine? England, France, and Japan. 4 countries that totally depend on the American defense. How logic it is to link trade with defense. Okay.
What about the countries that have trade deficiency? Is China, Mexico, Japan? They don't have the same situation that was present at that time. So why should they agree? And on their way, as we say, they are breaking another China in a literal sense, not in a metaphoric sense. He's now breaking the trust in Japan, the word preserve currency. This is not going to help anybody actually, because the dollar is changing from an element for assurance and security to a worrying aspect and worrying element, so that the general show we should take into consideration that we're dealing with a person, not we're dealing with an institutional system. So this is a risk. For Egypt, I'll say a final speech that the exposure of the Egypt's exports is very limited. There may be some opportunities as any issue or crisis that happening. There are some opportunities, but to take use of these opportunities returns back to Egypt to take reform steps to increase the productivity internally. As Dr. Abdul said before, she addressed the studies in this center according for the unused opportunities. But if there is unfulfilled demand, so the productivity will be deficit in productive capacity. This is the first step. The second step, during what's happening, there should be some focus on the framework of Egypt, even at the African level or Arab level or the Mediterranean level. The third point I want that Egypt can do to join the countries which encourage the system that is going now to protect the weakest points or weakest parties. Egypt is one of the countries that keen to preserve the trade relations to ensure the opportunities, the export opportunities during in a legal framework. So the result depends on the reactions. We didn't see any reaction or enough reactions. We saw China rejects up so far the negotiations, but if we imagine a scenario, it's just an imaginative scenario. I didn't read about it, but I may read. When we saw the first 4 countries that America export to them, the first 4 of them are Canada, Mexico, China, the European Union. The European Union is 18% of America's export, Canada is 17%, Mexico is 16%, China is 7%. Between these 4, 58% of America's export. If we imagine these 4 countries join and take a situation what will be the America's export situation or the negotiation situation with the American administrative. It's an imaginative scenario that can take place in the coming period. But we are in a fluidity period, so that we can't start imagining numbers, but we need to see what are the factors that are heading to us. Sorry for being lengthy, and thank you for your dude listening. Thank
Sure.
To- you're not lengthy at all. You speak better than the presenter that he was saying the word is sneezing. Oh, thank you so much for this presentation. I want to tackle some points that is related to the countries that the USA export to. Who is going to be impact? And we said that Egypt is on the shore. Our commercial relation with the world is very weak, and what we have to do is reform, not only to increase the productivity, but actually legislative, structural, and institutional reform in order to be at the level of the commitment. You referred to many points. First of all, the data are not credible, and the way of measuring the deficit is not correct, and does not shed the light on the services, and the number is very less than 50 billion. The obsessing with manufacturing, actually this is very clear. What I'm surprised about that how those people, he doesn't see, I don't know. I want to understand his personality, but those around him, the counselors, how come they don't see the harm that the USA will face? The international trade system, not it is the idea of the declination of the system, but is to lose the stability and the competitiveness and productivity, and that it all depends on the reaction of the countries, and it is an illegal negotiation. And this will take me to the direction to what extent we need to change the international system, because we can keep the multilateral. What we see now, that there are things that are not correct. The voice of the countries of the South, the BRICS also, this is happening because the international is not, the system is not achieving the objectives. This is one of the issues that we in the center, we focus on. And finally, the service sector, and actually we are conducting a detailed study on this. I will contact you anyway, one way or another. I'm going to contact you. Thank you so much.